Hi, I was thinking about a topic. What I originally had planned was to talk about the Bible, specifically the generational ages in the Bible, and I will go to that. But I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind for a little while. Periodically, I think about this. It's too long to be a too long to be a 1 minute topic, but it's important enough to talk about. Strike that. I was going to. It's too long to be a 1 minute YouTube short. It's a little bit more involving, but not quite very involving. Okay. I'm thinking about social groups, little organizations, populations, subpopulations within a group interacting. And I wonder if that's akin to the mind, each person's mind. Now, what brought this to mind was this movement of people taking HRT and transgender, people coming out as transgender, and there's a backlash against that. I'm not going to get into the politics of that. There are also other movements, other social movements, and reactions by other groups to it. And just without getting into politics, just at the outset, watching this, it seems like you have a whole community and you have one movement reacting to another movement. And I'm thinking about the human mind, and you think one thought and then there's a counter thought, and it's sort of like an organism. That's what I'm getting at. It's something like an organism evolving. And I wondered if our community, whether it's a city, whether it's a town, whether any social group large enough, you could consider it the whole world. You have different countries interacting with each other. If that could be something like a whole community or a whole mind interacting with parts of itself. Now, I know that Dr. Richard Schwartz has developed this idea of the internal family systems. What's that? He was someone who was treating family systems, in other words, the dynamics within families, where one person takes a certain role and then the other members of the family react and respond. They take on roles themselves. And there's a whole dynamic and interdynamic aspect to all this. And he found that the human mind, he suspected that when he was looking at patients with dissociative identity disorder, or the claim that they had like multiple personality disorder and so forth, he came up with the notion that this seems reminiscent of family systems. So he called it internal family systems. That is that our minds are each made up of different parts. And you could say, well, part of me wants to do this, but another part of me wants to do that. And one part has this motivation, another part doesn't. Especially when it gets to addictions. I've been interested in this too. Now, I watch I watch YouTube videos of To Catch a Predator, and many times the predator will go to it's a sting operation. The predator will go to a house, presumably with a like 13-year-old person alone, and act predatory, seem nice and so forth. And then Chris Hansen steps out and essentially calls him on his bluff. And I find it interesting that sometimes they still suspect after driving like 2 hours, they suspect this could be a sting. Was it real? Was this a sting operation to catch him? But yet he still drove the 2 hours to get there. The addiction to, whatever with this 13-year-old was so strong. It's like that urge was fighting against this other urge to suspect and to be careful. He should have known better. He should have been careful. And if he was suspecting it was a trap, he should have stayed home. He should not have gone and made the trip. But this other part was this urge to go on the trip and do it anyway. Now, of course, I'm not. We may all be addicted to something. Like when I was growing up, I loved to chew bubble gum. There are certain, for a while I liked soda. We all probably have urges, or not urges, addictions. In some sense, addictions are part of our routine. Like, could you classify certain things, certain routines you do in your normal day to be addictions? Sometimes those addictions can be for the sake of safety. They keep you out of trouble. Now, there's some addictions, of course, that are very harmful. What compels you to do that addiction anyway, knowing that it's harmful? Take, for example, smoking and drinking. Those are, in my mind, the most prominent ones. There's no reason to smoke. In fact, it's so harmful to your body. You should know better. There are warning labels. There should be still. I remember there's a Surgeon General's warning. I don't see any commercials now for drug addiction. Those ones that say get help, and this is your. I remember in the 1980s. I think it was 1980s, maybe 70s, and they just played in the anyway. There was a famous commercial where it shows somebody with a frying pan, and he says, "This is your brain," and then he cooks some eggs on it, and he says, "This is your brain on drugs." Any questions? There's a bevy of commercials like that, public service announcements. I don't see them anymore, but I would like to think that people are wise enough not to begin smoking in the first place, and yet I see people smoke, and I don't know why. I don't know if people's alcohol levels have come down. I don't know if we've socially conquered the concept of drunk driving. But I'd like to think that there certainly are warnings and like social pressure not to drive and drink. Social pressure, I hope, not to smoke or drink excessively or whatever, or do drugs, very harmful drugs. So there's this addiction. There's one part that says drink, and there's another part that says no, it's harmful, I get a headache. In fact, there are physical symptoms, like that your body is telling you, like I haven't smoked, but you probably guessed that already, but from what I understand, the first few times you smoke, it doesn't taste very good. Why do you keep doing it? Is it social pressure? It tastes awful, but you build up a tolerance and you just keep doing it. It's like your body is telling you, this is harmful, don't do it. I've had some alcoholic drinks, but not to excess. I've heard of hangover. Even then, the body is telling you, don't do this. And yet, something compels you to keep doing it. All right, so what does that have to do with what I was talking about before, like the community possibly acting like it has many parts and different parts speaking? There's a narrative theory I've talked about before called Dramatica, It was developed by two people, one Chris Huntley, and the other is Melanie Ann Phillips. And Melanie has taken this further in her blogging to talk about what she calls narrative science and narrative theory and how the minds work. And in a blog, I read her thoughts on how the CIA has contacted and other groups like the CIA have reached out to the creators of Dramatica because they were very curious about how it could be employed in de-escalating criminal situations. There could be a hostage situation. Melanie, in her blog, was talking about how even in political systems, there would be several members in the group or quote characters in this scenario, like a real life scenario, and if one person begins playing a certain part, the others instinctively begin playing their, begin taking roles relative to that person's role. I haven't read about it. This is the gist that I've gotten from it. I haven't explored it more deeply, but I hope you get the gist of what I'm talking about. There's almost like a metaphysical concept to it, a metaphysical dynamic to it. And it also, as I'm saying this, I'm also reminded about how slavish we might be to these roles, how instinctive they are to sort of fall into. And that takes me back to the internal family systems and the family systems, where there's some kind of dangerous situation, there's some kind of one person in the group begins taking on a certain role, the others, again, instinctively, I'd hate to keep using that word, but instinctively take on their own appropriate roles in order to deal with the situation, in order to deal with that person. So I'm also thinking of this in terms of politics. For example, this is kind of more blatant and obvious, but if one party, say the Democrats, take a certain stance on an issue, the Republicans will react and try and counter it. And I'm thinking internationally, does the United States have a certain role in the world? Do other countries react to what the United States does? And there's a whole international dynamic. So I thought I'd throw that out there. Maybe I'll explore this in the future. I hope so, because it seems right up the alley of this YouTube channel. So I'm going to, in a moment, I'm going to post this, and then I'm going to post another video about Genesis 5 and Genesis chapter 11, chapters 5 and chapter 11, about the ages and trying to figure out the pattern in the Bible. So I'll see you soon.